Dopamine swipe, dopamine swipe. Followers, likes, double tap. Now they control your life.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to an episode of the 817 podcast. I'm back in the U.S. and EJ and I are here after a week Easter break to get into the news, politics, and social things happening in Fort Worth and Tarrant County.
I honestly thought you were going to come in with a French, doing some French or something, have a whole new language.
It was okay. So I took 4 years of French growing up. I'm not by any means conversational, but in France, you try to be French forward. You don't lead in with English. And then that kind of transitions as we moved places. So Brussels has two national languages, French and Dutch. And for the most part, everyone would start conversations with English, but I'm still my brain's half working in French still. And then we go to Amsterdam, where it's just such an amalgamation of people from all over the place that even locals are starting conversations in English with each other. We're hearing them speak Dutch, and then a server comes to the table and they
just context switch.
Yeah, they context switch to English.
Wow.
My brain is still trying to go French, even though I am a couple months of Duolingo into Dutch. So I have a basic understanding, but I'm still going French, and then I'm wait, no, I'm not doing that. And I was just all over the place.
That's pretty cool. But yeah, so what's your, was there ever a moment where you're man, Fort Worth should, or man, why does Fort Worth not get this right? I guess we're going to get a lot of that with the bond package and roads and no transportation, because you did public transit, I bet, the whole time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Walked, public transit, trains between cities.
Felt like the dream.
Oh, for sure. Walkable communities. It's amazing how happy you can tell everybody is living in walkable communities.
Hey, we're going to get into a lot of that today, as that's going to be the main story, the bond package, an important bond package for the city of Fort Worth, and early voting starts today, Monday. So let's make that happen, and we're going to talk and break down the different propositions. But before we do that, we got a couple short stories to happen, and so I think we're going to start with our first short story with Beto O'Rourke. He was in town last week for a intimate fundraiser and kind of event, and we're actually just, the real story here is we're starting to feel like the guy's picking up some steam, and Governor Abbott is having a couple missteps with the border and checking trucks for things that didn't exist. Jimmy, what's your take? Seeing it probably on the news while you're international.
Yeah, it was weird, kind of getting a lot of news maybe 8 to 12 hours later, just because of time difference and when we would be asleep. But I feel ever since the 2018 election, when Beto obviously had a ton of momentum, it's kind of felt like a lull, oh yeah, he's still around, he's still doing things, but didn't feel like there was that fire there that just invigorated really the whole country behind him in 2018. And we're starting to see those little glimpses of that again. And still, I would call it a long shot, but maybe a little bit less of a long shot. And that is because Abbott is just kind of, I don't know, he stuck his head up his butt and is just not thinking. Clearly you're out here trying to continue to play up this whole border crisis thing that, for all intents and purposes, is insanely overblown. The Texas National Guard is not being paid what they should. They are owed back pay. They're not catching the number of people coming across the border that they're saying they are, or seizing the amount of drugs that they say they are. It's all a contrived thing. And I guess he took it a step too far and has made a decision with searching these trucks that I think The Economist said has cost the U.S. economy $9 billion in a week or 10 days, like that. And the fact that this is getting so much national attention is what someone like Beto needs to be able to have conversations with Texans that says like, hey, the reason that prices were going up on your food specifically is because of the actions of Greg Abbott. And so if he's talking to a moderate voter that maybe would tend to vote Republican, like he's got a lot of really concrete things that he can bring up to say, hey, this isn't going to happen under my watch. This is what I'm going to do. So maybe the door is slightly more open now than it was before.
Yeah, and then you also have the Beto leaning on the property tax play. You know, a lot of when Beto was running for president, he was really hitting the whole gun rights and AR automatic rifle thing, and kind of really that was like his campaign there, which didn't really work.
Yeah,
once he got there, and obviously if you're running in your Texas governor seat, you can't go that way.
Yeah,
so I feel like he's just now hitting sensible things, like property taxes,
right?
Which is also something we're all going to see impact us around this time, and so.
And that's that he would use legalizing marijuana, the tax on that, to negate or help cover increases in property tax. Which, if it's not your homestead, like I'm assuming you're probably seeing a 20 to 30% bump in property taxes this year.
Yep. And he talked about several different. He had a 4-point plan around addressing housing, and to me it was refreshing because it was clear and it made sense. So it just felt like something that other people could also rally around. And it also just seems like he's getting a lot of people. He's doing great on the marketing and the advocating of the events that you're seeing centered people hanging out with him, or advocating with him. He's in small towns, Sherman, Texas, wherever, and people with Republicans for Beto shirts, which I think, so it's really kind of exciting. I mean, we still got a lot of time, but it's kind of exciting to see that there could be something, and even if it doesn't work for Beto, how much it helps out. Maybe Deborah Peoples or whoever else is kind of running, across the state.
Yeah, which, speaking of down the ballot, we have more on Mercy Culture and their candidates that they are pushing this week. There was a Facebook video that went up that was basically saying that it was Mercy Culture's lead pastor saying, like, we don't just want the mayoral seat, like we want every school board seat, every seat on city council. Like they want to rule Fort Worth and Tarrant County. Like they essentially want to turn us into a religious oligarchy.
Yeah.
And like if they are able to push Tim O'Hare across the finish line at the county level, like they're starting to create the blueprint, like we've talked about before, for being able to win these seats. And especially if we're looking at less hyper focused positions like school board and even like lower level county judges, like there's a lot of opportunity for them to continue pushing candidates into those positions. And I don't know, like I think that's a blueprint that would pretty quickly get copied nationally by either Mercy Culture or churches in that same vein.
Yeah, you're. I think I sent you something like that in a tweet response when you sent me that stuff around, like, it's scary that the national white supremacy Nazi movement could literally be started in Fort Worth by Mercy being the template for everywhere else. And Mercy Culture has been in New York Times. It's been in, national news. People are watching what they're doing. And it's like a legit, if the newspaper should have a title, it's like, don't vote, feel the mercy. Like if you, like, we need to go vote. Like Fort Worth, if this doesn't make us one of the most voting cities, we're gonna go through 4 years or 6 years of realizing how important voting is. So maybe there will be a response back once we see if they did pull all this off. Because you're right, a church can get a school board seats. I mean, granted, they're only in a specific district. But, it's also exciting to see that specific district fighting back, right? The Oakhurst Neighborhood Association fought back against their plans for a proposed center for housing human trafficking victims. 95% said they were opposed to the project. So Mercy Culture's like, they can't do it. I'd be really interested to know how many people show up to that church that actually lives in the area. Like, what's the rate there?
Yeah.
So even does it matter in a sense of that too? Like, does their power spread more? Like, it works for city like Steve Panate, but it may not work for city councils because their people don't actually like reside in in a cluster space.
Yeah, true. But if they are spread out, that gives them more districts that they can be running for somebody in. And if they're just pushing the resources out to them and the people out to them of, going door to door, like I feel like they're learning how to mobilize their people very, very well, which is not a good thing for the city. And even, this video is ludicrous. Like, talking about separation of church and state, saying that doesn't actually mean that government should be separate from the church. Like,
the government should be separated in church. Like, you can't have the government inside your church.
Yeah, but you can have
your church
a church inside the government. Like, but thousands of people like stand up cheering after he says that, and it's like, okay, like, all these people believe that.
Underneath of it called for liberty and justice.
This has been a fun experience because what we're finding out is people are scared speechless when it comes to church and politics. And then they say silly stuff like, well, there's supposed to be a separation between church and state. The separation between church and state is to keep the state out of the church. It's not to keep the church out of the other spheres of society. Which is hilarious because so many pastors and preachers and churches think they're terrified to talk about anything that they judge to be political. We just call it justice, what is heavenly justice. But they're so afraid of people leaving and stopping giving if you talk about anything that has to do with justice. And we've just seen mercy culture grow over and over and over when we talk about what's in God's heart. So we're just getting started. So here's the story. We were at the election night for Pastor Steve's campaign, and I'm sitting in the back. I'm kind of uncomfortable in those events. I'm standing in the back, and up in my spirit came, we're not just going after the mayoral. We're going after every seat on the school board, every seat in city council. It's not just mercy culture. We need to equip the Church of Jesus Christ to gather together in unity. And when we come together in unity, we can shake up the city.
Obviously, Tim O'Hare, it's like the two endorsements you want in Texas is Donald Trump's and Mercy Culture's.
Yeah,
like that seems like the rallying cry. But these people are insane. And
but in other states, when churches have mobilized, it's been fought back against.
Yeah, like in Georgia, when black people mobilize to turn it into a blue state. Black people's strategy, black churches, was voting after church on Sundays. And what did Georgia do? They eliminated voting on Sundays, or attempted to. I don't know if they actually got it across, but they were saying that we're now not going to allow it because church was involved with elections. So it's to me like, how are you going to make laws to go against this? But right now we're really uplifting and supporting this in Texas, this behavior, and it's impacting. The way Republicans have used education. And I don't even want to say public Republicans. The far right has used education is crazy because it's churches are being leveraged for politics, and then churches are now influencing schools.
Well, and then even saying you want to go for every school board seat, like if you're talking about Fort Worth ISD, that's 85% black and brown, with a church that is definitely not 85% black and brown, but like you want to be influencing everything that they are taking in and learning. Like it's just a recipe for poisoning the city.
Yeah. Yeah. It would, shout out to Oakhurst Neighborhood Association, because, there's a lot of important, it's a part of this excites me in the sense of like, it's just showing how important all of us need to get involved. It even just shows me the importance of us having podcasts like this. Like there are people out there who are fighting against and mobilizing against mercy culture. And if it's from a neighborhood association like Oakhurst, if it's, United Fort Worth, if it's, you name it, there's people standing up. And I feel like Fort Worth is now seeing its potential. And by seeing its potential, it's seeing that it needs to start voting. And I know votes weren't high this last time around, but they were higher than usual. And if we just keep making that progress, that'd be good, because we got a lot of votes coming up, a lot of elections to vote on.
Well, and with that, like, I feel like Fort Worth Weekly has gone all in on basically only reporting on mercy culture and Bill Wayburn. And like, you might roll your eyes at some of their approaches, but it's very important that we continue to uncover like what is going on behind the scenes here. And even the fact that Fort Worth Weekly has not been putting their reporters' names in the byline, like, tells me that there's a definitely risk of some backlash by them continuing to push out stories like this. But talking about Bill Wayburn and moving into the Tarrant County prisons, like, we have one of the highest death rates in the country when it comes to jails. And we started talking about this in 2020. It didn't change last year in 2021, and it's continuing to get worse in 2022. Fort Worth Weekly and then also Nicole Manna at the Star Telegram have been doing a lot of pushing back on why this is happening, and even that families aren't being notified that their family member or friend is passing away in jail until weeks, maybe months later.
Yeah. Imagine, having someone in incarceration in Fort Worth and they die and you don't find out till months later.
Yeah.
Like, you didn't visit them. You didn't get to understand. And, we're talking about wives. We're talking about kids. We're talking about mothers. We're not talking about friends. We're talking people who love us most, not knowing. And yeah, and you mentioned that kind of statistic around how we have more deaths than other cities in state of Texas. I mean, when you look at Dallas, for instance, Dallas has over nearly 6,000 people in their city jail. 5,390 is their population, and they had 8 people die in Dallas County Jail in 2020. Where we've had 17 people die in 2020. So, and our jail is 3,700 people. So you're, almost, what is that? Almost 1,500 more inmates.
Yeah.
And you have twice the number of deaths. And going back to your Wayburn thing, instead of worrying about that and keeping our jails safe, Wayburn's over here talking about, the fight of our future is this sex trafficking stuff, which, is an important conversation to have. But he's so focused on this human trafficking unit and really making a lot of accusations on what he is targeting, who he's arresting on these things, compared to what these offenders are being arrested for and what's actually human trafficking. But him and Mercy Church are using very broad terms to put a lot of fear in things that I want to note. I'm not saying that's not happening. It's not that this is not happening, but the size of fear that they're creating, they're knowing this button is working, and it's working for nonprofit sales. I mean, donations. Mercy Church wants to create a center because people are putting money into that. It's something that is working right now. Like what used to work when back in the day, Save the Children in Africa. Like it's the new clickbait to impact in these communities, and that's what Wayburn's worried about, rather than the lives that are sitting.
That he's actively destroying.
Yeah, so it's big trash.
And they're just able to put whatever numbers they want on social media until they get pressed on them. Like Mercy Culture, the wife of the lead pastor of Mercy Culture, like posting on social media that 29 million Americans have been trafficked. 10% of the entire country has been trafficked. And then when somebody pushes back on that, they take it down, act like it was never up there, but nobody's going back to check those posts again. Like, once you've put that number out there, people who want to hear that are running with that number.
The 115 people arrested in Tarrant County human trafficking sting was an October's news story read, which included the Star Telegram, the Fort Worth Weekly says, and like it makes it sound like smuggling sex workers through North Texas, when really what happened, which I'm again not saying right or wrong here, is 115 random targeted men were lured by decoys posing as prostitutes. None of the arrested offenders had kidnapped children or women, but that didn't stop Wayborn from boasting about this mega human trafficking sting.
Right, and this is like this is eliminating demand for purchase sex in Fort Worth, Tarrant County, the United States. Like, that is trying to, we learned through like the drug wars in the 90s, like trying to eliminate the supply side is not what works. Like, you have to look at demand. And so basically what that 115 people is 115 random guys who are trying to buy sex one night. And it's like, yeah, like you did catch 115 people who were trying to buy sex. You did not catch some 115 ringleaders that were trafficking thousands and thousands of children, which is what, like was it something Pizzagate in 2020? Do you remember Pizzagate? And the Wayfair, like boxes that these were like kids being trafficked, the very first like QAnon conspiracy theories. That's what he's trying to act like this is, when frankly it's not. And like, this is a good thing that like you're looking at the demand side and trying to eliminate that. Like, that's the proper way to attack an issue. But that's not what you're illustrating this to be.
Yeah. I think your 90s war on drugs phrasing and example there is really accurate, how this is being played.
Yeah, we're just like
marketing of fear at an outrageous thing that we're not actually objectively looking at. But we all, like, because it's a double negative, meaning like it is negative, but then you accelerate what the negative actually is. Mm-hmm. And then people don't judge you on it, so then you're getting massive donations, you're not getting any pushbacks, and then people like Wayburn thinks they're a hero, yet practical real issues are happening in jails that you are responsible for.
Yeah, and like saying this as somebody who,
while getting on commercials in your uniform,
with Trump's endorsement, and
you're protecting politicians, but you're not protecting your cellmates, that you're responsible of.
And like, how can you profess yourself as redeemed by Jesus and then act like every single person in your prison is beyond redemption and not treat them like a human being? Like, that's the issue with Tarrant County jails, is we do not, and like jails nationwide, is we do not treat inmates like human beings.
Yeah.
And even, Florida has gone through the process of like stripping inmates of the right to vote. Like literally, we do not see them as human beings. And so if you are going to profess in your faith that Jesus is larger than any sin, any deed, any misgiving, and can redeem any of that, then how are you going to treat people in these jails, some of whom are just too poor to post bail on very small petty things, and you're going to say that they're beyond redemption and not worthy of being treated as a human being? Like, it's so gross, the manipulation that they are using within their faith and their churches to really mistreat so many people in this area.
Yeah. I mean, you have people who, there was also a lot of stories on like jobs and people looking for jobs after they get out of prison.
Mm-hmm.
But like some of these people, like 15 years for like breaking and entering into a house.
And meanwhile, we've got, Carrie Moon still getting to
go to
work out his city council.
I thought you went to Spain with him. That's where I thought you went. I thought y'all went to FC Barcelona together and shared a pint. I thought this whole time that's what you were doing. I was like, I thought he has to stay in the county with his ankle thing, And then, but yet he's going to FC Barcelona to get his little soccer complex. Makes no sense.
Insane.
Yeah.
Well, are you ready to move into the bond election?
Yeah, let's get to the big story.
So, the 2022 bond package is the largest in Fort Worth's history, with the largest chunk of money dedicating to building or fixing roads. Roughly 2/3 of the $560 million bond package would go towards improving major arteries in far north Fort Worth, fixing neighborhood streets, mostly within 820, and addressing safety concerns on roadways with high numbers of traffic accidents. It also puts a significant investment into pools and improving outdoor spaces, as well as improving some police and fire safety improvements. And then once we go through the bonds, we'll also get to the charter amendments that are coming on this election as well. First off, and this isn't towards Harrison. Harrison does not write headlines. That's not his job. How, Fort Worth Star-Telegram, are you going to act like front page of the Sunday paper, more parks, more pools, new parks, easier commute? Have we really, how many bond elections have we voted on in the last 2 to 5 years that go towards improving roads have actually changed anybody's commute? Like, no, we all know that building more roads will not have any tangible effect on how long it takes for you to get to work. And then 2 pages later, drive, swim, play. How does drive fit with swim and play? Like, it's just not, those 3 things do not fit in the same category. Swim, play sounds great. Drive, not so much.
And in the front, you said park twice, by the way. What is it again?
More pools, new parks, easier commute.
Yeah, gotcha. Yeah, they're celebrating.
Yeah, already acting like it's done. So we'll start with getting into Prop A. That is the streets and pedestrian mobility infrastructure. $369 million. Most of this money would go towards arterial projects in far north Fort Worth. These areas have seen significant growth, and residents have struggled with increased traffic and safety concerns. The second biggest investment will be for neighborhood streets, with $81 million dedicated to repairing or replacing deteriorating asphalt and concrete in neighborhoods, mostly inside Loop 820.
So I don't know if that's the actual split there, but if you're looking at $370 million and you get 81 of that in the loop, what's that ratio? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you're looking at
3/4 of it going towards far north Fort Worth. Yes, like it is growing a lot. Like it needs road infrastructure. Why more of this isn't put on the developers, who we just continue to let,
Yep.
build housing without the proper infrastructure. Definitely a question to be asked.
Yeah. So what's interesting about this, like, and are you going to go through and like say which one you're saying yes to, or are you just voting yes down ballot?
I can go through and say I will say no to streets, yes to parks, yes to public libraries, no to police and fire.
Yeah. So here's the thing about the road thing, right? It's what kind of I've been having a new relationship with Fort Worth, with the idea of these are the same people who chose, right? Who chose to live way out there. You wanted a nicer school, quote unquote. You wanted a newer build. And now these are the consequences that you must live in for those things. And now everyone has to feel bad for this and vote yes for your problems, which I think I will vote yes for Prop A. I think I will vote yes because I feel for you. Now, but here's the kicker. When we had school board meetings voting for new middle schools in the city, are these the same people who voted no?
Yes.
Right?
Basically we shut down Como Montessori.
Yep.
Because of enrollment and funding.
Yeah.
We almost didn't get to build all the new middle schools. We shut down their stadiums. We shut down other improvements to gyms and theaters. And that's these people.
Yeah. And so, maybe I take that back. I don't know. I'm on the fence on that one. Today's early voting, but you got to May 7th. So you know what? I might take some time.
It's just such an inconsistent position to say that the city shouldn't be spending money on services, to take a quote unquote conservative form of government and then to say, $270 million to come build me an extra lane out to my house. Like, yeah, I'll take that.
But, what I also realize is, and I'll probably make this, my relationship with Fort Worth is becoming more palatable, and I actually have a lot of positive things. But that will probably come in other episodes when we talk about that. Or maybe I'll even talk about it later in my wins. But realize what's happening there, right? It's you want us to invest in your roads because you paid for pretty schools and houses. But we invested in being closer to the city center and around diversity, and we need middle schools, and you voted no. Let's just remember here, that's what we're asking for Fort Worth proper to do. So keep going though. What you got next?
Prop B, park and recreation improvements. 16 projects listed in this bond measure. The two that have gotten the most attention have been the Forest Park pool replacement and the Stop 6 Aquatic Center, which there's been a number of statistics coming out recently about how terrible Fort Worth's pool situation is. I think Austin is at like 30 public pools and Fort Worth is at 3.
Yeah.
Dallas was somewhere in the middle with like 18 or 19 or something. Like
Arlington 5.
Yeah. Like Arlington has more public pools than Fort Worth does. So those remodeling those is high priority in this funding. The bond also allocates $5.5 million to develop 8 neighborhood parks spread across the city. The parks will be built on undeveloped city-owned land and could include amenities like playgrounds, bike and walking trails, and practice fields for youth sports. Heritage Park downtown would be restored and improvements to increase the public space down the bluff to Trinity River, which that makes sense given Panther Island. I do think it would be interesting to see come like building these 8 parks, where are the ones that get the bike and walking trails and practice fields for youth sports, and where are the ones that just get a little playground built on it.
Yeah.
But the pools is the biggest thing coming out of this, and Fort Worth investing in that is clearly long overdue. And then Prop C, public library improvements. This bond will fund the purchase of land, design, and construction of a new library in far north Fort Worth. City is looking at land near the intersection of Avondale Hazlitt, according to a March 24th bond education meeting organized by the city. More libraries, like the area is growing up there. having a library that services those needs, positive thing. It is interesting that, we're using a bond to invest in libraries while at the same time listing the downtown one on the market. And I wonder if we do sell that for like the $50 million they think they're going to fetch with it, like what does that $50 million go towards? Something I'm sure that we'll know more about down the line. And then Prop D, police and fire safety improvements, almost $40 million. Sorry. The prop.
They have $40 billion.
Yeah. The proposition will fund the land acquisition, design, and construction for 2 temporary fire stations and 1 new police station. The fire stations are in Walsh and Far North Fort Worth. The police station will consolidate the Northwest Patrol Division into one building. And with this, I'm just like, fire department, don't really know like where a lot of their funding, what their funding looks like. Police department, we know, has oodles and oodles and oodles of money.
It's the reason why we can't invest in anything else.
Right. And so trying to give them more money to build a new station, like we already voted to give you part of our tax money for that, for facilities and equipment, like use it.
Yeah. They got tanks. Like you can figure out, sell one of your tanks.
Sell one of your tanks. Yeah. Okay, and then the last one, Prop E, open space conservation. $15 million will help the city buy more land to conserve Fort Worth's natural landscapes and potentially develop them in the future into parkland. This doesn't sound like annexing land like Fort Worth has done in the past. This sounds like buying back natural areas in Fort Worth to make sure that we continue to have nature in the city. So I've generally been pro those happening, and like we see the benefits of it in our neighborhood with Tandy Hills.
Yeah, absolutely.
You
want to hit these? Go ahead.
Yeah, and then we'll move into the charter amendments. Prop F, mayor and council pay. I feel like when this came up, we were talking about how mayor and city council had their work cut out for them in messaging this correctly and getting the word out about it as to why it's important. And I'll just say that I have seen none of that.
Yeah.
Like, mark a big F on your report card for getting this out there. I imagine that this is going to fail miserably. But our mayor and city council are woefully underpaid relative to anywhere but a small suburb. And we're looking to raise the pay. It's the second time that we've put this up in the last, I think the last time was like 5 years ago. Translates to roughly $100,000 annually for the mayor and roughly $77,000 for council members. Honestly, like, still not an insane amount of money for a more than full-time job for these people.
And when you look at the numbers, you're looking at $587,000. That's not like after voting for all these other things, you're like, oh, I mean, I guess we could do that. It's not even $1 million.
Yeah. Like how we're going to give the police department $40 million for another facility, but we can't give an extra $100,000.
It's a facility to park their tanks,
Yeah. But our mayor and city council can't have another $100,000 so that they can have a living wage, not or even a minimum wage.
Yep.
So I am not looking forward to seeing the numbers on that, but it is a prop that we're voting for. I think I can say confidently that you and I will both be voting yes for that. Prop G, meets and bounds for districts. This prop eliminates the requirement for the city to use meets and bounds to describe the borders of city council districts. These are legal land descriptions that use natural landmarks like trees, streams, and rivers to describe the boundaries of a piece of land. It doesn't mean the city can't use meets and bounds. It just eliminates the requirement to do so. I mean, it seems like it would make life easier than having to say, like, oh, this council district ends at the second tree past the park.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't know the like negative behind that.
Yeah, I agree.
Prop H, post-termination hearing. Right now, city department heads, the city secretary, attorney, and auditor have a right to a public hearing before the city council if they get fired. There's another provision in the charter that prevents the council from interfering with the city manager's management of city employees. This means if a department head, city attorney, auditor, or secretary requested a public hearing after being fired, the council technically couldn't do anything about it. This amendment cleans up the charter by eliminating the right for that hearing. I mean, I do think that there needs to be more oversight over the city manager. I think that's for sure.
Yeah. Today, city managers play as the Illuminati, and,
Yeah.
and city councils the front faces.
Exactly.
So, yeah, any more way for us to open up that curtain?
Yeah, get some checks and balances there.
For sure.
Prop I, time to review petitions. This amendment extends the time the city secretary has to review petitions for completeness from 10 to 25 days. The extra time will help the secretary's office not have to hire temporary staff to review citizen petitions to meet the 10-day time frame. I mean, I don't know who these people are that they're hiring. I assume that they're qualified to be reviewing city petitions, but I'm sure that this is pitched as a cost-saving thing for the city. Again, it just seems, I don't know. Do you have a take on it?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like a lot of things get missed in city council stuff because they don't post things in time.
Yeah.
So the positive of having more time might allow us to like not have like miss public meetings or things that, you know, that happened a couple times where city council said, oh, we're going to have this meeting to talk to people, but they didn't give people more than 48 hours of notice or something like that. So I don't know if that has to do, any of this helps that, but if it did, I see the purpose of a longer time.
Yeah. I see the purpose of it.
Yeah.
I do see the downside of,
I feel like this
like,
one's
if
going to be
you're-
fine because anything that says lower costs,
yeah,
you know, like
is gonna, yeah.
yippee-ki-yay.
Yeah. Prop J, tax assessment and collection. This deletes references to the city's finance department in the part of the charter that talks about local tax collection because the county handles that. Makes sense. Prop K, city health department. This amends the city charter to eliminate the requirement for the city to have a public health department. Like tax collection, the county handles public health now, so this amendment edits the charter to reflect that. Yeah, I mean, that's how it works. Like if you're a restaurant or business applying for whatever, trying to open up, like it goes through the county. So that does make sense. Prop L, newspaper notice, sale of property. If the city is selling a property worth $125,000 or more, it has to advertise it in the Star Telegram 4 times. This amendment eliminates that requirement. Instead, the city has to advertise it once and keep it posted online for 4 weeks. I assume that there's some cost difference in advertising it once. I do think it's very important to notify the public about things like this going on.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I necessarily feel about changing something that potentially helps veil things being done by the city, like selling property. But it seems like it would be the same.
Yeah. Yeah, I think okay with it.
Prop M, paying for sidewalks and curbs. Amendment eliminates the requirement for the city to charge property owners for the cost of building a sidewalk abutting their property. This brings the charter into alignment with the current practice of the city itself paying for sidewalk and curb construction. Makes sense, as it should be. Prop N, timing of assessment roll. This amendment eliminates references to certain dates tax assessors have to report certain data to the city. It replaces the dates with deadlines to make the city charter align with requirements in Texas state law. Okay? Prop O, public service core reports. This amendment eliminates the need for public service corporations to file annual reports to the city. Don't know how I feel about that. I want to know what falls into the category of public service corporation. Like anything involving Panther Island, like is that run by a public service corporation? Like we know that there's a lot of sketchiness with how they have been spending money over the last decade, like them not having to file annual reports.
Annual reports are good transparency. They need to happen.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. So that's a no.
Prop P, official advertising contract. This allows the city to sign long-term advertising contracts for certain newspaper advertisements that are required by law, public hearing, land sales. Instead of negotiating the contracts annually, this eliminates the need for the city to put out the advertising contract to bid and go through a lengthy process. I do think it's, well, okay, like newspaper, what like competition necessarily is there, but I don't think this should turn into a practice for more of the city contracts where they're signing long-term deals instead of having to bid them out consistently and see if they could save money or get better service.
Yeah.
Prop Q, annexation elections. This deletes outdated references to specific polling hours and the mayor setting polling locations for annexation elections. Instead, the charter will require annexation elections to be held in accordance with state law. Makes sense. Prop R, independent auditors. This amendment defines the duties of independent financial auditors and eliminates the requirement for them to print copies of their report. Again, I think that I would lean on the side of transparency. Like, why do we not want paper trails of audits to exist?
Yeah.
I would think that that's the purpose of an audit, is to make it transparent. So why would you do something to make it less transparent?
Yep. I got no for O, no for R. Did you say no for Proposition N? And why I'm going to do this is we're just going to put what we are going to vote on the description, so you can just kind of see as a reference, and also the story here.
No, and we said like it.
Good.
Yeah, lines with Texas state law.
So it really was just
L. We were a little bit sketch on like what's the difference between advertising it 4 times versus advertising it once for 4 weeks. That might be something. Harrison, I'm going to assume you've listened to this. If like you or somebody at the Star Telegram could clarify the difference between those two things, that would be awesome.
Yeah. But all in all, that's small. You know, it's a small change of like nothing crazy. So if we're kind of on the fence there. But the ones all around transparency, yes, you need to keep doing that work.
Yeah.
Because obviously we're not transparent.
Like we have seen the results of lack of transparency, which we'll get into in our wins and losses for sure.
So that I know that was a lot, but usually when we have elections, we dive into that information. And also to note, please just get in the habit going to go vote. These are the elections that matter. Yes, it's fun to vote Biden, Trump, and get fired up, but these are the ones that matter for you directly as a Fort Worthian. So just get in the habit, take some family, start showing your younger siblings, your friends, the importance of voting. Because if we don't vote, we can be at the mercy of the people we don't want to win.
Of the culture.
So, let's ride into the sunset with wins and losses.
I will start with my loss, and that is the Tarrant County Forum will address concerns about election integrity. Here's what you need to know. basically Tarrant County Commissioner's Court is going to be holding meetings to talk about election security in Fort Worth and in Tarrant County. The reason that this is my loss is that we're just continuing to peddle to conspiracy theories and like far right made up conspiracy theories, and we continue to dignify them and like make them talking points for the city, the county, the state, the nation. And like we just need to stop. Like let these live on Facebook and let them stay there.
Yeah.
Like we do not need to be taking this into the public domain.
Yeah, there wasn't no public hearing meetings around Tarrant Regional Water District and what money was taken from people.
Yeah.
Which was real.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah. If you don't believe that the election or voting works, then just don't vote. That's what I need you to do. Don't vote. Because it doesn't work, right? It's a scam. So stop. Don't worry about it. All right. So my loss is, I mean, this one could be a long story. I mean, a rant. J.D. Granger, head of Panther Island Project, is stepping down to start his own company. Basically, this is a massive fluff piece of someone who's had, his brand trashed for nepotism, taking money for days off, and just not doing a strong job on getting Panther Island completed in the 16 years we've had to move this. But he is proud of a smidget of water that is, I guess he says on his Facebook, the only city in Texas where there's a river you can swim in. And I'm like,
don't go swimming in the Trinity.
Yeah.
Like, let's just put that out there.
Yeah. And then I'm just confused. Like, does Austin not allow us to swim in that? I'm like confused. Like, it's like, I guess.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
just,
people in there all the time.
I know. I'm like, that doesn't sound, but okay.
People people float the river and
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm just like, that is done. And then
he's always been delusional.
Yeah. And then he takes credit for the $400 million that we got from the federal government. And that is what happened when you passed it over to Democrats to play nicely. And so, again, they're just trying to allow this guy to ride off in the sunset on a horse. He's now starting a consulting company, J.D. Granger, LLC, which if anything shows privilege that, you have a business with your name because it's going to get you something, as a Granger. And so, and my big scary and L about this is that there's people are worried that the Texas Regional Water District will create a contract for this guy. So yeah, he's not hired as an employee anymore, but he's going to get some fancy partnership contract,
right?
Still
then
with the city, and that's
doesn't
solve the problem here, people.
Then he gets paid potentially more to not have any oversight, to have even less oversight than he has this whole time. Making
$250,000 a year. And then pit in for another $60,000 because of leave. Okay, $242,000 a year, and then the $60,000 in extra pay time off. Just a big L. And this just shows you how even when white men make massive mistakes and just wet the bed, we still prop him up and try to ride him off on a horse. And he's a big L.
Mm-hmm. What's your win?
My win is MP Materials. So I'm really excited about MP Materials creating their magnetic factory here in Fort Worth in Alliance, Texas. That is, one, we talked about this early, but I'm just getting more and more excited about this because of how vital this is from a national perspective. 92% of the world's magnets are made in China, and they're used in everything from from consumer products to defense technology. And so the future of U.S. supply chain can be in Fort Worth with MP Materials breaking ground on their new manufacturer magnet facility in Alliance. And it's just, one, I think this company is positioned to really thrive and succeed. I'm thinking like the way NVIDIA has succeeded in semiconductors, the way Taiwan has, they're a company that's positioned where it's a demand that it's not a need. It's not a want. It's a need for our country. Mm-hmm. And so when you're positioned that way in as an organization, they can build up to 1% of the need of the materials needed in the country to fund technology, which is equivalent to 500,000 electric cars. And so that's a great start. They're trying to bring back building and the whole supply chain back into America. So I just think this is a powerful, powerful company to have in Fort Worth. And I mean, will pan out better than if we had Rivian. And even Rivian CEO is complaining about the lack of these things is why they can't get off the ground. So we're just getting closer and closer to the source of the entire sphere of electrification. So just super excited for it. It will bring 150 jobs and come online in late 2023, tripling possibly by 2035. I think this like a sure win in Fort Worth.
Yeah, agreed. My win is Arts Goggle came back this weekend after a couple year hiatus. The premier arts festival for highlighting local art and local businesses. We had to go out of town to celebrate Easter with my in-laws, so we couldn't make it. Usually it's on Sunday too, right?
I thought it was 2 days.
Okay, so we were thinking we'd be able to go to on Sunday.
Right, we're not crazy, right?
No, I'm very confident. But then I started to think I was crazy.
Yeah, I know it's been a couple years.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. But super exciting for Fort Worth that this was able to make its comeback this year. Hopefully that means that Open Streets will be coming later in the year as well. But just really happy for all of the local artists and local businesses that were able to represent. And as always, it seems like it was crazy packed with people.
Yeah, we didn't go either, me and my wife. We had a wedding. I found out like last minute. I was like so pumped to go to Arts Goggle. It's like one of my favorite days of the city. And then it's just like had to go to a wedding.
It's amazing how much people love when streets get closed down and people get to enjoy cities rather than cars enjoying cities.
Come on, what a great way to end the pod.
That's what 2.5 weeks in Europe will cement in your brain.
So you're really not going to vote for the first one, the first big Prop 8, because you're like,
no, I'm going to vote against any time they bring up roads. I'm going to vote against it. If they ever bring up a prop that says dollar for dollar, we will match road infrastructure to public transit infrastructure, I will vote for that.
There you go.
Until then, drive on, dig a dirt path for yourself. Like, we cannot continue just throwing money at an issue without trying to create meaningful change around it. Which isn't to say that Tarrant County public transit organizations are not doing that, but they continue to just get, hand in the face when it comes to actually making like really meaningful progress.
And the new executive director of Trinity Metro, Jimmy Sweeney, everybody. So
no.
There you go. Awesome, man. Well, it's glad to have you back. Make sure you go out and vote for the bond election. Our votes and how we will vote will be in the description. Take a friend, get in the habit, because there's going to be a lot more voting along the way, and in some important things, including District 4 City Council seat, which we didn't even get into. We're talking about we have
school board seats.
Yeah, school board seats. And remember, if you don't vote,
you can't complain.
Yeah. You're in the mercy of the culture. Take care, everybody.